The date was June 10th, 2014. I was 18, just a kid really, but I knew storms. I lived for them. I was in New York City for a family thing, not a chase. Never expected a chase here. The sky that afternoon felt wrong. It was too humid, too still. Then the air turned a sickly green, a color I knew too well. This wasn't supposed to happen, not in NYC. My heart began to pound, a familiar drum, a beat of fear and excitement. This was big. This was different. This was the concrete jungle about to face nature's rage. My gear was back in Oklahoma. All I had was my phone and my eyes. I saw the clouds begin to rotate. Far to the west, over New Jersey at first, a classic supercell structure, unmistakable. My family was confused. They saw a dark cloud, I saw a beast. I tried to explain. Wall cloud, inflow, rotation. They didn't get it. Not until the first distant siren wailed, then another. The sky was boiling. It was a pressure cooker, and the lid was about to blow. I felt so small, but so alive. This was it. The moment. Then the funnel descended. A slender white rope at first. It danced, almost teasing. Then it thickened. It grew wider, darker. It touched the ground miles away, but it was moving fast, heading east, directly towards the most famous city on Earth. The roar started, a faint hum, then a growl, then a freight train, louder and louder. There was no mistake now. This was a tornado, a real violent tornado, and it was aiming for Manhattan. My training kicked in, document, observe, but a part of me was just awestruck, terrified. The sheer size of it was breathtaking. It wasn't just a funnel anymore, it was a wedge, a massive churning column of debris and fury. It dwarfed everything in its path out there. I knew what that meant. Extreme winds, extreme destruction. My mind raced through EF scale ratings. This was looking like at least an EF3, maybe stronger. In the middle of millions of people, unprepared people. This wasn't the plains. There were no open fields, just steel, glass, concrete, and so many lives. The beast was coming. It was almost here. The tornado carved its way through the outer boroughs first. Staten Island, Brooklyn, Queens. Reports crackled on my phone's emergency scanner app. Buildings collapsing, power lines down. It felt surreal, like a movie. But the screams I could hear faintly in the background of some transmissions were real. The beast didn't care about boroughs or bridges. It just consumed. It hit the water of the harbor, became a massive waterspout for a terrifying minute. Then it slammed into lower Manhattan, the financial district, the historical heart. It hit with unimaginable force, a raw, brutal power. Cars became toys, yellow cabs, delivery trucks, sedans. They were lifted, spun, crushed, thrown into buildings. Windows exploded inwards, then outwards. The pressure changes were immense. Glass rained down like deadly hail. Bricks and pieces of facades peeled off skyscrapers. The wind howled through the man-made canyons. It created vortexes within vortexes, screaming like 1,000 tortured souls. Debris flew everywhere, signs, trees, parts of rooftops. It was a blender, a giant angry blender set on high. And the city was its contents. The destruction was absolute in its path. It wasn't selective. It hit brownstones and skyscrapers with equal fury. I saw a multi-story parking garage partially collapse. Cars tumbled down like rocks in an avalanche. The noise was deafening. A constant, grinding, tearing, roaring cacophony. Then it aimed for Midtown. It cut a swath towards Times Square, the heart of tourism, of lights, of dreams. Now, it was the target of a nightmare. The tornado incredibly maintained its strength. It fed off the city's energy, or so it seemed. It was a relentless, terrifying force. Times Square, the vibrant, chaotic heart of New York. It went dark. Not just the power, the giant screens, the billboards, they were ripped apart. Twisted metal skeletons against the raging sky. The famous New Year's Eve ball, gone, smashed. The wind funneled by the tall buildings created even more intense damage here. It was unrecognizable, a war zone. The colorful advertisements became shredded flags of surrender. The usually bustling square was a maelstrom of flying debris and terror. This was a sight I would never forget. The city's icon, broken. The human toll began to reveal itself almost immediately. Even as the tornado raged, screams pierced through the roar. People were caught completely off guard. Tourists, office workers, residents. Nobody expects a tornado in Times Square. Panic was everywhere. People running, people hiding, often in the wrong places. Storefronts became death traps as windows imploded. The streets were a chaotic mess of injured, dazed individuals. I saw people emerging from damaged buildings covered in dust and blood, their faces etched with disbelief and horror. It was pure, unadulterated fear. Thousands were injured. That was the early estimate, and it kept climbing. Lacerations from flying glass were common. Broken bones from falls or being hit by debris. Head injuries. The sheer volume was overwhelming. Ambulances couldn't get through many streets. They were blocked by rubble, by crushed cars. First responders were heroes, but they were facing an impossible task. I felt so helpless. My storm chaser instincts were screaming to document the meteorological phenomenon, but the human suffering was right in front of me. It was raw. It was devastating. I grabbed a first aid kit from a damaged pharmacy, tried to help where I could. Small bandages, pressure on wounds, anything. Then the news confirmed it. One fatality, one life lost. Amidst the thousands of injuries, one person hadn't made it. The details were scarce at first. Later, we learned it was someone caught in a building collapse. One life. It felt like a punch to the gut. Every injury was a tragedy, but a death. That made it permanent. It underscored the true danger, the immense, indiscriminate power we had witnessed. This wasn't just about twisted metal and broken glass anymore. It was about lives shattered, a family grieving, a city mourning. Even one death was too many. My adrenaline was pumping, my heart was racing. I was scared, I won't lie. This was beyond anything I had prepared for. Chasing on the plains is one thing. Wide open spaces, escape routes, this was different. This was a concrete trap. The buildings channeled the wind, made it more unpredictable, more violent locally. There were moments I thought a wall would come down on me, or a piece of flying debris would find me. But the drive to see it, to understand it, to be there, it kept me going. But the cost, the human cost, that was a heavy weight. As the tornado finally weakened and moved off to the northeast, an eerie silence descended, broken only by the sound of distant sirens and weeping. The city was in shock. The air tasted of dust and rain. The green sky slowly gave way to a bruised purple, then gray. People wandered, dazed, covered in grime, helping each other, strangers united by trauma. The sheer scale of the damage was hard to comprehend. Block after block, scarred, battered. New York City, the city that never sleeps, was momentarily stunned into a painful, quiet wakefulness. It was a humbling sight. Surveying the damage the next day was even more gut-wrenching. The path of the tornado was like a giant scar carved across the face of the city. Buildings that had stood for a century were now rubble. Parks looked like they'd been logged by a madman. The vibrant energy of the streets was replaced by a somber determination. Cleanup crews were already at work, but the task was monumental. It would take months, years in some places, to rebuild, to heal, but New York is resilient. I knew that. Yet this was a wound that would not be easily forgotten. For me, the emotional impact was profound. I was 18, I thought I was tough, I thought I understood storms, but this was different. This wasn't a scientific curiosity I observed from a safe distance. This was personal. I saw the fear in people's eyes, I heard their cries, I felt the city's pain. It changed storm chasing for me forever. It wasn't just about the thrill of the chase anymore, it was about the impact, the responsibility, the raw, untamable power of nature that demands respect. Deep, profound respect. No photograph, no video could truly capture the horror. The biggest lesson, no place is immune. We think of tornadoes as a Midwest phenomenon, plains, farmland, but they can happen anywhere, anytime, if the conditions are right. New York City learned that lesson the hard way in 2014, and I learned it with them. Preparedness is key. Awareness is vital. This event, this fictional monster that tore through the realest of cities, underscored that. It solidified my resolve to understand these storms, to warn people, to chase, but with a new perspective, a heavier heart, and an unwavering respect for the sky's unpredictable fury.